Welcome to this episode of Courier Conversations. I'm Jeff Robinson, your host, and with me, as always, is my co-host Travis Kearns. And yet again today, as with last week, we are going to talk about our favorite topic, and that is the Bible. And so, Travis, we want to talk today kind of about, I guess, for lack of a better summary, kind of a nuts and bolts of you want to study the Bible seriously on your own. How would you get started with that?
Great topic to talk about. It's something that I think maybe some of our church people might only study their Bibles during Sunday school, whatever small group they're in, or only during Sunday morning sermon, that they count that as their Bible study for the week. But it's really important, I think, that we study our Bibles on a regular basis, on a daily basis, in the same way that you would talk to your spouse on a regular basis, more than one time a day, hopefully. You talk to your spouse regularly. You talk to your children, if you have kids, regularly. Other family members, friends, coworkers, whatever it may be, you talk to them on a regular basis. In the same way, you want to talk to the Father through prayer and hear from Him, not only through prayer, but specifically through His written revelation to us. So yeah, I think it's incredibly important, something that's worthy of talking about. And as you mentioned, talking about Bible translations, whether you should get a study Bible, are there other helps you can use, things like that. So yeah, I think it's a great thing for us to talk about.
I think the first, what my son asked me is a good question. What's your practice? And so I can only speak to what my practice. I don't know that the Bible prescribes a particular time of day to do your Bible reading and prayer and things like that. I think I would say what works best for you. But my practice, and I want to hear yours too, Travis, is I get up at 5 o'clock every morning. I pray and usually always pray and read the Bible, read it systematically. I read through the Bible every year, but I also have a devotional that I've used. I've used actually Table Talk magazine. I've used for about 27 years now, I guess, or something, that guides my sort of a more focused, dialed in kind of reading that's more meditative and memory verse oriented. I do a lot of that, but yeah, I do it that early in the morning and I started that because I had 4 young children who were not up at 5 a.m. but were up, not long after that, and so it was a necessity a long time ago, and it's been a practice I've done now for close to 25 years or so, and so that's kind of what I do. And it's still, I'm a morning person. I grew up on a farm, so I'm accustomed to getting up early. I worked in newspaper business for a lot of years, and I had to get up at 4 a.m. Then when I worked at the paper, and so I just am accustomed to that. It's a good time for me, and so that's kind of what I do. I really just simple, pray and read Scripture. Every single day. And of course, I read the Bible at other times and pray at other times throughout the day, but that's my focused time. And really, for me, it's been life transforming. I think I've been asked that, what changed you more than anything as a believer? And I think it's been that simple practice. And usually for me, it's an hour and a half. I mean, it's a little time. I'm not in a hurry. And so that's why I do it so early, so I don't have to be and do it quickly. And I realize not everybody might have that kind of time, but that's just the way I do it.
Yeah.
What do you do? What's your
So
practice, Travis?
yeah, regular practice, daily reading. I'm not as old as you are, so I'm not up quite as early. You got me by an hour. But what I do is read through text and pray. So I love doing chronological Bible reading, and I'll alternate. So one year I'll do a 1 year chronological plan where you get through the entire Bible in a year, and then for the next 3 years I do a 3 year chronological plan. So it gets through the entire Bible in 3 years. Basically, the 1 year plan is 2 to 3 chapters a day. If it's a shorter book, maybe an entire book in a day. The 3 year plan is for the most part 1 chapter a day, so it forces you to slow down. It's the 1 year plan is probably about 30 to 40 minutes ish, with reading through the text, thinking through it, what's actually going on, and reading through it chronologically for me has just always helped me think through. Oh, Isaiah, even though his book is in one part of the text, is a contemporary with these minor prophets over here. And even though they're a few books over in the organization of the text itself, they're ministering at the same time. Or, reading a harmony of the Gospels. Hey, just because Matthew, Mark, Luke, John are in that particular order doesn't mean they happen in that order. It's the same things being covered from 4 different perspectives. So that chronological reading for me really does help. But again, I'll do so this year I'm on a 1 year plan, and I read through different translations every time. So I'll try to mix it up, just to not have the same thing over and over, because it would just become rote, like muscle memory. But I'm with you. It really does change your perspective, changes how you look at other people, because you realize they are creatures created in God's image, just like you are. You treat people differently, you talk to people differently, treat your spouse differently, your kids. Um, and it gives you, I think, a different take on what the church is and how the church should function. So rather than just this group of people that get together to do something like the Lions Club or whatever it may be, you're getting together for the sake of worship, and you're bringing into it what you've been doing and preparing during the week, so you can put more into it than you get out of it. And I think really the best way to do so is through daily scripture study and prayer. So, yep, mine is up at 6, read either 3-ish chapters or 1-ish, depending on the plan I'm on, and then time with prayer, and then off we go for the day.
Well, and I'm like you. I read. I've used every conscionable plan, Bible reading plan over the years that you can imagine. The McShane plan. I've used that several years. I like that one a lot because it takes you through the Old Testament and the New Testament twice. And I do. The Gospel Coalition has a similar plan with readings from D.A. Carson that go along with that. I've done that for a few years, and right now I'm doing the Ligonier, the table talk, following just through the Bible, through Genesis to Revelation. You read 3 chapters of the Old Testament, one of the New every day, and so that's what I'm doing. I did that last year, and doing it again this year. And I'm like you, I've done the chronological reading before, but the thing is, I mean, there's not a right or wrong way to do it if you're reading the Bible. I mean, you're really
Yep.
reading it meditatively, and not reading it so you can check a box. And that is, every one of us is tempted to do that, to say, I did my thing today. God must be proud of me. I'm sure. No, it's not. That's not why you do it. I mean, I want my. It's really a. Don Whitney calls it in his book on the spiritual disciplines, private worship. And I think that's kind of what mine amounts to. Again, I'm not singing and praising the Lord out loud and anything like that. You can do that if you want to. That's just not my personality, I guess. And so, it's very much, a time of focused prayer and unhurried prayer and Bible reading. So it is more like a private worship, so that it doesn't become, and even for that, it'll become a little rote sometimes. I don't want it to. Yeah, that's my practice. Well, let's talk a little bit, about translations.
Yep.
You and I both grew up in the deep South in places where they raised all of us on the King James Bible, and I have great respect for the King James Bible. I grew up on it. A lot of my scripture memories from Vacation Bible School in the 1970s, and you had most of our churches use the King James. That is one good translation, New King James. There's the Christian Standard Version, which is the sort of the Southern Baptist translation, and the ESV, which is the one I mainly use now. The Revised Standard Version, New American Standard Version, which is a good, the Living Bible is the Living Translation, and all those non-literal sort of thought for thought translations. So Travis, what do you use? What do you recommend, and why?
Yeah, I'm always going to recommend, first and foremost, whatever Bible translation you will read, that's the one you should use.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
if if you prefer and appreciate King James, go for it. There are people in, not just in our area where we are in South Carolina, but across really the English speaking world, who are firmly convinced that the King James is the only Bible for English speaking people, which I know is not the topic of our conversation, but we can very much talk about that. But I am about as far from you can be. So I would say whatever translation, if you grew up speaking French in South Carolina, then use a French translation, if that's what's comfortable for you. So use whatever you will read, is the first thing I would say. The translations that I usually suggest, I love the Christian Standard Bible. It's a great translation. It's a good kind of moderating force, if I can put it that way, between a thought for thought like the New Living and a strict word for word like New American Standard or the Legacy Standard. So I either always suggest Christian Standard or the New American Standard, the 95 update. I grew up in the 80s, and our church, where I grew up, was using the King James until 1984, when the NIV came out in 84. And in 84, we switched to the NIV. So I grew up on the 84 NIV. Was actually saved on the Living Bible, the paraphrase that Ken Taylor did in the 70s, which I've actually had, believe it or not, people question my salvation because I was saved on the Living Bible. Which, just as a nice little fun side note, in the original edition, Ken Taylor had profanity inside the text in 2 Samuel. In subsequent editions, he put it in a footnote, but nonetheless, he had profanity in the text. So yeah, I was born and bred on the NIV. My parents always had that. My dad grew up in an independent fundamental Baptist church, so he was King James only as he was growing up. But yeah, grew up on the NIV, really. That's where I cut my teeth. But then I started college at North Greenville as a religion major in 1995. And in the fall of 1995, the New American Standard 95 update came out, updated from the 77 into 1995, removing some archaic English language and some idioms. But that is the Bible I used all the way through college. Had been teaching out of the New American Standard forever, um, and really, that's kind of where I did all my Bible memorization, was from the 95 update of the New American Standard until the Christian Standard came out. Um, the thing I appreciate most about the Christian Standard is you get modern day measurements and money. So it kind of fits the American reading. So instead of denarii and shekels and temple measurements, you get pounds and feet and inches rather than ancient world measurements and monetary measurements, so that it just makes it a little easier to understand. But yeah, I've read through New American Standard probably 6 or 8 times, through the CSB. I've read through the ESV. I've read through the Legacy Standard. I've read through the NIV. I've not read through King James or New King James. I've read through the New Living, and like all of them, I appreciate what translators are trying to get at and what they're trying to do, because each translation has a particular audience in mind.
I grew up on the King James Bible because really, I think the first non-King James Bible to appear in my home, and my parents were not King James only, and my church wasn't King James only. It was probably King James Preferred. I think that's what they would have said back then. But I remember the Living Bible. I remember it had a green cover that made its way into my home. My mother taught a teenage girls Sunday school class for years, and that really helped her understand the Bible. She loved. My mother's a devoted student of the Bible, and that really helped her. And I'm like you though. In 1984, I remember after my junior year in high school, I went to FCA camp in Black Mountain, North Carolina. And they gave us there the brand new NIV Bible, and FCA had the little FCA logo on it. I was very heavily involved in athletics and FCA in both high school and college. And they gave us that little Bible. And for years, I loved that. I had that Bible. I loved it. I would read it because it was much plainer to me than the King James was back then. And it would lay on my nightstand at college or over in at University of Georgia in Athens. There are Christians over there, and I was one. And I was involved in what used to be called Baptist Student Union there, and FCA. But that Bible really made me love the Bible. So it became like you, the version that I read for many, many years. And really until I went to Southern Seminary in 2000. That was the year the English Standard Version came out, and I started reading that. It's a very readable, literal translation, but it's excellent for being read aloud. It's good for private reading, good for memorization. And and of course I think Tom Schreiner had worked as one of the New Testament editors. He was my pastor there, and really enjoyed that Bible, and that's become what I preach and teach from now. And have for a long time. And the church I'm a member of, the Abner Creek Baptist Church, I think that's our pew Bible, and also it's what our pastor preaches from. And so I like that and commend that to our listeners, along with all the versions, Travis, that you mentioned. Those are all good. And of course, one issue that arose really around 1996, maybe 1994. was this notion of making Bibles gender neutral, of gender neutral translation, of making the pronouns gender neutral, of speaking about men and women to using the universal he, universal male to stand for the whole human race and things like that. So there are some of the newer translations like today's New Living Translation and others that do kind of bootleg some of that language in, and I would warn our readers about that to be on the lookout for that. If you use that, just be careful about that. But the ones you talked about, the King James, New King James, the CSV is excellent, of course. The living or the I'm sorry, the NASB. I use that in my Greek class because it's very wooden but very literal, and those are translations that I like a lot as well, and commend to our listeners.
Yeah, one of those gender inclusive translations you have to watch for, especially, is the newest edition of the NIV, the 2011. Then, of course, the TNIV, today's New International
Yeah.
Version. So definitely watch out for that one. If you have questions, I would say to those listening about Bible translations to use or not use, contact the Baptist Courier, contact our association, the Three Rivers Association. Talk to your pastor. Your pastor's going to, if you trust him as he teaches the Bible, you trust him on translations to use. Usually the way it goes is this. If you've never heard of it, maybe stay away from it. If you have heard of it, maybe talk to your pastor about it, and you'll be good to go. There are always translations coming on the market. There are always translations going out of print. The ones that you've likely heard of: King James, New American Standard, NIV, the Christian Standard, the Legacy Standard, the English Standard Version. Those are just good. And I may have missed one here or there, but those are good translations. I would venture to say, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong from your history knowledge, but I would venture to say that never in the history of Christianity have we, especially as English speakers, had so many translations to pick from. For a long time it was the Geneva Bible, and then 1611 hits, the King James comes out, and it just goes, it explodes for hundreds of years. And really, Luther's German Bible in the 16th century, Tyndale's edition, on and on we go. But there were only one or two at the most at one time. And now we could have upwards of 15 to 20 just in English that are all very faithful and very good translations from which we can choose to study our Bibles. If they're all written on different grade levels. Usually King James is considered a 12th grade level. NIV is usually around a 6th to 7th grade level. New American Standard is about 10th or 11th grade. So pick a Bible that you know and you trust, your pastor's counseled you on, and just read it. Whatever translation you can find that you like, that you can understand, just pick it up and read it.
And one of the new realities, which you and I have talked about, there's a debate as to whether listening to the Bible being read is reading the Bible, and you and I we've talked some about that, but that's not what the podcast is about. But some of the programs like Audible, Spotify, things like that, you can actually get you can get free translations on there of all these versions that we've mentioned here. And even if you have, a lot of us have iPhones, you can get a program that reads the Bible to you there. If you're in the car, I wouldn't recommend this for your quiet time because I don't know that would be a way to meditate. But one of the things I've done, one time I was on a trip. I was going from here over to Georgia through the mountains, and it's going to be in the car about 3 hours. And so I listened to Romans and Hebrews. I just wanted to hear the word. I'd studied the Bible that day, but I found that really helpful. Max McLean, I think, was the reader, an excellent British reader, and then I listened to those two books and really benefited from it. Again, I don't know that that's the same as reading. That's another debate for another time, and I wouldn't want that to replace your reading. But if you say, well, I'm going to use Audible or nothing, well then get a Bible on Audible and listen to it. I know
Right.
I'm old and you're old at heart, so we we tend to do things the way they used to do things. But just like you said, read the Bible, listen to the Bible, intake the Bible, in any way you can. And so that's the bottom line. And I think we live in the age of the internet. There's never been as many resources, good, solid, meaty resources out there. You could almost get a seminary education on the internet now. I mean, you can get one from a school, but I mean educating yourself. If you don't feel called to vocational ministry, you don't need to go get a seminary degree, but there's so many good resources out there that will teach you the Bible, teach you theology, teach church history, all these things that really will supplement. And I know I've had, I always said one of my favorite armchair theologians was a man who was in a church I served in Indiana years and years ago. He drove a Pepsi truck across the Midwest during the day. He drove like 9 hours a day, and he was home at night. He wasn't a long haul trucker, but he was in church every Sunday. He was one of our deacons, and he just gave himself a biblical education by listening back then to CDs on
Hmm.
R.C. Sproul, John MacArthur, and John Piper, and all these people. And he'd take his Bible with him. And he'd have to stop while the truck was being unloaded for a couple hours. He'd do his reading, do things like that, and really knew the Bible. And amazing how much theology he knew. He even had learned a little bit of Greek and was working on that my last bit of time with them. So there's really no reason why you can't, if you want to understand read the Bible, understand the Bible. Nowadays, there's really, and you don't have much money even to spend on that. You can get a lot of this for either nothing or next to nothing on the internet if you've got a computer or your phone internet connection. So it's accessible now, probably in an unparalleled in a way that's unparalleled in human history. And a
Yeah,
lot of that stuff too. Got to be careful. Got to be discerning.
there are some great resources available online. I would urge caution, first of all, because there are resources available if you were to do just a basic internet search that are going to come from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so the Mormons. They're going to come from the Watchtower Society, that's Jehovah's Witnesses. They might come from the Church of Christ Scientists, so it's Christian Science with the Mother Church in Boston. You're probably not going to find anything from Scientology because they're not much into strict Bible study. But there are online resources available, especially from those three big cult groups, that will lead you astray very quickly. So, those also, just quickly back to Bible translations. One of those groups has created its own Bible translation. That's the New World Translation, created by the Watchtower Society of Jehovah's Witnesses. So, if you've got a New World Translation, don't use it for reading. If you want to use it for comparison's sake with an actual Orthodox translation of the Bible, do so. But otherwise, don't read that one. That one will lead you astray and into heresy very quickly. But yeah, Jeff, to your point, I think it is an incredible time in which we live because you have resources like, and this is not an endorsement, I'm just thinking of things off the top of my head, like Blue Letter Bible. That you can find online with lots of free helps, a number of translations that you can see for free. Your church might have a subscription to a particular service online where you get free access to resources. There's a great website that's ccel.org, the Christian Classics Ethereal Library. That's a lot of old, no longer copyrighted books, so books that are at least 100 years old or older. Ton of material on that website. However, you have to be careful there too because there's some Catholic material on that one. But just almost an inordinate number of resources available. Or, download your favorite Bible software program. Maybe look at Logos or something like that. Accordance is another good one that's very popular, more of a language-based one. But I mean, just Logos, I use that one every day just as an example. There are tens of thousands of study helps and books and commentaries and Bibles and original language resources available there. Obviously not for free, but available there should somebody get a wild hair and want to really do some in-depth study. You can study until your heart's content. So yeah, plenty of resources available. A lot of times too, churches might have a library with some resources there. Public libraries sometimes have things, but you should be a little cautious using public libraries because there's no telling what may be in there. But again, just like with which translation to use, talk to your pastor, ask for his advice on what a good commentary might be, or Jeff, as you said, use Table Talk magazine from Ligonier. Even something like Our Daily Bread, which I remember my grandmother using decades ago and my parents using when I was a kid. Even something like that is going to be better than nothing. So yeah, ask your pastor for some advice and hit the pages and go to reading.
And as you find a way to focus that reading, don't just, sort of open the Bible and start reading there. You could do that. That's not a good approach. But make it a focused reading, and be intentional about how you read, and what the order and just how you study the Bible like that. And you can, there's a lot of joy and learning to be had that way. A lot of good websites, a lot of sermons out there, a lot of good, if you have questions about, any of this stuff, whether it can be trusted or whether, if you want recommendations, you're welcome to contact us at the Baptist Courier, contact the Three Rivers Association. We'll be glad to help you with that. We love that. You can look on our website. We usually refer to a lot of these ministries, like Ligonier that we talked about here, Nine Marks, or Desiring God, and there's a lot of other websites out there that have so many good articles and lots of sermons. I mean, Martin Lloyd-Jones, one of my favorite dead preachers from the 20th century, a British preacher. His sermons are available online now. In fact, there's an app, and they're about to start offering his sermon series on Ephesians, which it's wonderful. And he's got a wonderful accent from the UK, and he's Welsh, actually, delightful Welsh accent. And so, just so many things out there. No reason not to be a student of God's Word now. But if you have any questions about those cults and things like that, Travis has given a lot of his adult life to studying and those things and writing about it and warning Christians about it. Studying, in some ways, I think he knows their theology better than they do, which is a good thing. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. We're going to continue talking about the Bible in future episodes. If you have questions, please let us know, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for listening to this podcast of the Baptist Courier and Courier Publishing. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to make sure you never miss an episode. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms and send any question you want us to consider to courierconversations@gmail.com.